Throughout history, humanity has created some of the most brutal and merciless forms of resilience. Cruel torture, shocking executions, and methods that defy any notion of dignity and compassion. Imagine being buried alive and stoned to death, or have your bones crushed slowly on an iron wheel. And what about being burned alive in a public square, while crowds watch? Does it look like something from a horror movie? Believe me, all of this has already happened, and some of these practices still exist in certain parts of the world. In this video, you will learn about the most horrible punishments in history used to punish, humiliate, and spread fear. Which of these punishments would you never imagine was real? Watch until the end and find out. Leave your comment. Which ones horrified you the most? The purpose of this punishment is to mark the victim's body forever. In addition to causing severe pain, it will also deeply wound the female psyche. Until the end of the Middle Ages, this cruel punishment was gradually abolished. The ninth, stone torture. As the name implies, this punishment involves using stones to torture. The criminal's body will be buried in the soil, and a group of people will throw stones at them with force. Even the family will be required to participate in the torture. After repeated beatings, the prisoner will die, suffering both physically and mentally. Religious literature states that many crimes warranted this type of punishment, such as violating sleeping hours, cursing God, rebelling against parents, or engaging in forbidden relationships. This punishment was widely used in ancient times, but only a few countries have retained it. However, it has been condemned by international law and the United Nations for being highly degrading and inhumane. Women were more likely to be executed in this manner, revealing a gender discrimination deeply rooted in imperial societies. The eighth, the head-cutting wheel. Also known as the Kaiserling wheel, it remains one of history's most terrifying execution methods. This brutal punishment dates back to the Roman era and had two main variations. The first involved tying the prisoner to an iron wheel and crushing them with it. The second method involved breaking the victim's bones directly with hammers, shattering their limbs. The Romans used this method on slaves and Christians, believing it would prevent resurrection. Between 1793 and 1794, a cruel punishment emerged in France, known as the Marriage of the Republic. A man and a woman would be forced to strip, tied together naked, and thrown into a river. Perhaps to increase their humiliation, they would be left bound for a long time before being drowned. Although anyone could be subjected to this punishment, it was mainly used on hermits and nuns. This law was proposed by French revolutionary leader Calais from Paris. However, some historians debate its truth, as little evidence supports his motives. Many survivors of that period claim they had heard of the punishment, but never witnessed it firsthand. Moreover, there is minimal evidence proving its implementation. During Calais's trial, the defense emphasized this lack of proof. The next method, nail torture, involves gradually tightening restraints with embedded nails that pierce the victim's skin. This torture, invented in the Middle Ages, was not only a punishment, but also an effective means of interrogation. Since the nails were short, they avoided fatal organs, but the agony could last for hours or even days. Victims suffered repeated puncture wounds until they eventually died of blood loss. Sometimes fire was placed beneath the chair to increase their suffering. Now shifting focus to historical fashion, similar to the Chinese tradition, the breastcloth was a prominent form of attire. In the 16th century, French Queen Catherine de' Medici issued a law banning women with thick waists from entering the palace. This sparked an obsession with a slim waist among French women. By the 18th century, breastcloths became increasingly elaborate, often paired with exaggerated chest enhancements to emphasize femininity. However, early breast implants caused irreversible damage, making breathing difficult and even leading to dizziness. Over time, prolonged use could deform ribs and misalign the waist. This design persisted for over 400 years, causing immense harm to women. Their internal organs shifted due to lack of space, resulting in severe health issues. The third punishment, fire torture, was a method used to execute criminals. Victims were tied to a pillar, and a fire was lit beneath them. Some prisoners died from asphyxiation due to the ropes before the flames reached them. Occasionally, explosives were concealed within the body to hasten death. The first recorded victim of this method was a woman named Maria, who set 2 houses on fire. The last known execution of this type in the US was of a black woman in 1805, nearly 200 years ago. Another brutal method, the sharp thorns, involved binding the victim's feet with heavy objects while wooden spikes pierced their lower body. As the weight increased, pressure intensified, causing excruciating pain. This punishment originated in Spain during the Middle Ages and was practiced between the 15th and 19th centuries. It served to intimidate criminals and was often used in public executions. Spanish prisons mainly subjected nuns and alleged atheists to this form of torture, making it a serious violation of human rights and dignity. This punishment was slow and agonizing, causing deep psychological and physical suffering. Victims endured unbearable pain, despair, and fear. All right, that's all for this episode. Which of these 10 punishments left the deepest impression on you? Leave a comment below